Hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Sophie. I talk about books on this channel, and today I'm talking about physical books, specifically a subset of the physical books in my collection. I'm talking about my NYRB Classics collection. This is going to be a little tour, and I also want to talk about the appeal of certain publishers, certain collections, certain objects in books.
Bibliosophie.
NYRB Classics have a certain amount of cachet within an admittedly niche English-speaking, English-reading, and specifically American subtype of book enthusiast. Why is that? It's largely because these are very curated. They are curated in terms of what the collection is comprised of, which authors, which works. There are a lot of works which were previously out of print that have become reprinted. There are some really interesting titles in this collection. Additionally, there is typically a foreword or afterword written by other interesting authors. So it's a whole experience. You feel like these books have been chosen by interesting intellectual people. There is also, of course, a visual component that cannot be denied. Whether or not you like it, I personally do, this is a very strong aesthetic. There is the art backdrop, there is the small inset with the title, and there is the contrasting color of the back of the cover, back pages. So it's a very designed look. The combination of all this, fairly and potentially unfairly, means that these objects have a value. You can trust NYRB, potentially. That's the idea, at least. Now, this is not a perfect collection. This is not an exhaustive collection by any means. This is not the only collection you need in your life to be well-read. It has a specific point of view. I'll try to give a brief description of the books, but we're not getting into any sort of details, so that's my disclaimer. First up is Speedboat by Renata Adler. I have read this one. It is fiction, sort of, but it is barely fiction. This is from the late 70s. It is about Adler as a writer and her experiences. Slow Days, what's the full title? Slow Days, Fast Company, The World, the Flesh, and LA by Babitz. It's a short collection of personal essays. Babitz was a mainstay of the who's who of LA intelligentsia and kind of Hollywood adjacent people in the 60s and 70s, and this is her experience of that life. Cassandra at the Wedding by Dorothy Baker is the story of twin sisters, one who is getting married and one who is attending the marriage. It all takes place in one day, midsummer, and many things ensue. I loved this book. I read it a couple of years ago, and it's a wonderful story that I highly recommend. Living Pictures by Polina Barskova. This I have not read. It is a series of essays. I picked this up used last year, and I've been meaning to get to it because it seemed to be about the sorts of things that I enjoy, but I haven't read it and I don't know too much about it. In Living Pictures, Barskova writes with caustic humor and wild invention about traumas past and present, historical and autobiographical, exploring how we cope with experiences that defy comprehension. Grand Hotel by Vicki Baum. I've also not read this one, and I've been meaning to for quite a while. A grand hotel in the center of 1920s Berlin serves as a microcosm of the modern world in Vicki Baum's celebrated novel, a Weimar-era bestseller that retains all its verve and luster today. Let's see when I get to it. Down Below by Leonora Carrington is a short collection of her journal entries when she was in a mental institution. I read this a couple of years ago and liked it fine. It was not my favorite Carrington, who is an author I really like. I like her short stories. I like The Hearing Trumpet, her novel. So this is not my favorite. NYRB also publishes other Carrington, which I have read. I don't own any other NYRB Carrington. I own it in Penguin. So The Hearing Trumpet I have as a Penguin book. And in fact, I think Penguin is the distributor of NYRB. Quite possibly. There are quite a lot of books that are in the NYRB catalog that I don't own as NYRB books because they exist from other catalogs, and I just pick up what I pick up when I pick it up. I'm currently reading Love in a Fallen City by Eileen Chang. This is a collection of short stories / novellas. These revolve around relationships, interpersonal relationships, family and romantic, and the changing of the times in 20th century China. And there's very much the intersection of the old ways and a more modernist mid-20th century lifestyle. Family Lexicon by Natalia Ginzburg is fiction, technically. I have talked about it relatively recently on this channel as nonfiction, but it is called a novel. It is a fictionalized version of Ginzburg's life, her family, and their relationships, their ways of doing things, those kind of in-group ways that you have with your biological family, with your kind of communal family, as Italy descends more and more into fascist regime. Dead Souls by Nikolai Gogol. I have not read this translation. I read Dead Souls a while ago in a different translation, I forgot whose, and this is the Russian classic. So I cannot vouch for this translation at all. I think I found this particular book on the street, picked it up, why not? I was drawn to the NYRB, so that's why I have this one. But yeah, I have no idea how good this particular translation is. Sleepless Nights by Elizabeth Hardwick. I have not read this. I believe it is a novel, and I believe it's actually not that extraordinary. I have not really been drawn to it. I found it and the next book in my pile for very little money, so I picked both of them up. This is the collected essays of Elizabeth Hardwick. I found them in a used bookstore. And again, I was drawn to the NYRB collection of it all. I thought, why not? I don't have any Hardwick, and I have not read them since. So yeah, we'll see if I ever get to them. Hardwick was a major figure in the New York Review of Books, so it seemed right to have her in my collection at some point, but I've never actually gotten to her. My Face for the World to See by Alfred Hayes is set in Hollywood. It is a novel that centers on an Alfred Hayes type character who is a writer and screenwriter, and he meets a young woman. They start a relationship, and there's a very kind of noir undercurrent to it all. I liked the atmosphere of this book quite a lot. The Summer Book by Tove Jansson. This is a novel that I've not read. It takes place in summer, I believe, and I think it focuses on a family, but I've never read it. I mean to, I really ought to. This brief novel tells the story of Sophia. I didn't even know this. A 6-year-old girl awakening to existence, and Sophia's grandmother nearing the end of hers as they spend the summer on a tiny unspoiled island in the Gulf of Finland. Maybe this upcoming summer, or maybe in winter, I will read this one. Voltaire in Love by Nancy Mitford. This is an account of Voltaire's relationship with the Marquise du Châtelet. For a long time, it was a 15-year relationship, and so it gets into the Enlightenment and kind of a cast of important characters. I don't know how fictional versus historical this is. I've never read it. I've been vaguely meaning to do so for a while, but I've never gotten around to it. Stones of Erin, Pilgrimage by Tim Robinson is a book that I didn't get myself. I sort of inherited it. I have no idea about it. Is it fictional, or is it, I don't know if it's a travel account or if it's fictional, but it talks about Ireland and the Aran Islands specifically. It's quite long, and there is at the very least a second part. It continues with Stones of Erin Labyrinth. I don't know if I'll actually ever get to this. Speak up if you know and love this book or this series of books. convinced me to read it. Next up, 4 books by Magda Szabo. I love Szabo, she's one of my favorite authors, and so I have 4 of her books in NYRB collection. I've got Abigail, The Door, Katalin Street, and The Faun, all of which are translated from Hungarian. They are 4 different stories, but the through line for all of them is the juncture between personal history and world history, specifically Hungarian mid-century history, the breaking down of interpersonal relationships as representative or mirrors of the breaking down of kind of the social contract around us, or the reconstruction thereof. She's a wonderful analyzer of kind of human nature, in my opinion. My Death by Lisa Tuttle. I really liked this short little novella when I read it last year. This is about a woman who sets out to write about the life and work of an artist she admires and gets more than she bargained for, and I will leave it at that. It's mysterious and weird and wonderful. Stoner by John Williams. This is a book that is beloved by a lot of people. I don't love it as much, but I get the appeal. It's a very quiet book about an unremarkable man, and that is the appeal of the book. It's also very much a love song to intellectual curiosity and the transformative power of learning and allowing yourself to have an intellectual life. And finally, Morning Abreast by Shishi. I actually don't know if this is out. I have to assume so. This is an ARC from last year, but I don't have proof that there is an available published copy. I just assume so. This is about the author's breast cancer diagnosis in the late 80s, her processing that and processing the subsequent mastectomy and recovery after her diagnosis. And it's definitely a book I want to get to at some point soon. We have a dramatic lighting change as the sun has come out, but that concludes my little tour of my NYRB Classics. Of course, NYRB Classics are not the only collection of curated books. There are plenty of others from other publishers which have a similar appeal, combining an interesting, very chosen catalog plus a very curated aesthetic. Of course, one must mention Fitzcarraldo. The blue for fiction, white for nonfiction is something that is similarly very, very recognizable, collectible, and has quite a cachet because their catalog is really interesting and good. Tilted Axis specializes in translation and has a really interesting catalog of works translated into English. McNally Editions has similarly really attractive, in my opinion, covers, very unified, and kind of peculiar titles that you don't see in other publishers. And Other Stories, also highly recognizable, very distinct, and an interesting catalog. New Directions, which again, usually very attractive objects, a lot of authors that I'm interested in. Daunt Books, I always find these quite attractive. And Verso Books, which again has a very particular point of view in their catalog. I don't like all of their titles, but there are some very interesting choices in there, etc., etc. This is not a full list of interesting publishers. It's also a deeply, deeply Anglophone-centric list because that's all I've mentioned. I would love to hear which publishers or collections you're drawn to and why. Is it also aesthetic? Is it the catalog? Some mysterious third thing? Do you like these as well? I suspect a lot of you do too. And yeah, which non-Anglophone collections do you like and why? Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Ciao.